The week that begins in Germany is not like any other. Not for the German Church, and especially not for the Universal Church. There are moments in history when a process begun as an experiment crystallizes into a structure. It's the moment when there's no turning back. This is exactly where we find ourselves now. The final synodal assembly of a process begun years ago and presented from the outset as a response to a crisis has been convened in Stuttgart. A process that should have listened, corrected, and supported. But step by step, it has changed its nature. It is no longer a process of reflection, but rather the definitive approval of the statutes of a new permanent structure, the so-called synodal conference. And this is where the transition becomes historic. In recent years, we've witnessed a proliferation of terms that's no coincidence. First, the path, then the assemblies, then the council, now the conference. Different names, same direction. Each step has broadened the scope of decision-making, shifting the center of gravity of ecclesiastical governance. What began as consultation has become deliberation. What was presented as listening has now taken the form of a binding vote. The heart of the revolution is simple and precisely for this reason, disruptive. The equalization of votes. One man, one vote. Bishops, lay people, and religious, all on the same decision-making level. No longer the specific responsibility of those who have received the episcopal office, but an assembly logic that recalls models foreign to the Catholic tradition. It's not about participation, but about redefining authority. In this new structure, the laity aren't listened to, they decide. And not as an indistinct entity within the people of God, but through structured, powerful, and economically significant bodies. The Catholic Church in Germany is one of the country's largest employers, with tens of thousands of employees. This is not a marginal fact. It creates balances, pressures, and expectations. It transforms the ecclesiastical debate into a confrontation between apparatuses. The lay committee called upon to express its opinion on the statutes is largely composed of figures internal to this system. The unanswered question remains: do they truly represent the sensus fidei of the Catholic people, or a self-referential, bureaucratic elite? This is where a crucial part of the future lies. Adding to the uncertainty, an unexpected decision has arrived. The president of the German Bishops' Conference has announced he will not seek re-election. He could have stayed. He has chosen to exit at the most delicate moment, a leadership vacuum that weighs like a signal. Who will now lead the episcopate? A mediator or a systemist? The answer will directly impact the outcome of this transformation. Not all bishops followed this path. Some openly dissociated themselves. Others chose not to participate in the assemblies. They are a minority, but a minority that pays a high price. Dissent in this context is not neutral. This was clearly seen in a precedent that marked a change in approach. At one of the past assemblies, a vote on sensitive doctrinal issues failed to reach the required quorum among the bishops. The result was shocking. Not a reflection, but a reaction. From that moment on, the vote became public. No more secrecy. Anyone who disagrees does so in plain sight. And since then, the number of those against has drastically reduced. Not out of conviction, but out of fear of the consequences. The statutes currently under discussion also provide this. A bishop who decides not to apply a resolution of the synodal conference in his diocese, must publicly justify his decision. Expose yourself. Justify yourself. Become the target of a powerful media and organizational machine. It's a mechanism that discourages dissent before it even arises. In this tense climate, a letter from Benedict XVI emerged a week ago. The text remained secret because it was correspondence. In a few lines, the former pontiff warned of the dangers of a synodal process detached from tradition, capable of transforming the Church into a self-referential organism. His judgment was sober but clear, and the conclusion, while not apocalyptic, suggested that such a trajectory could not lead to a positive outcome. In other words, it would end badly. That warning today sounds like a final warning, because what happens in Germany will not stay in Germany. When we return to the discussion of synodality at the universal level, this will be the benchmark. The German Church is blazing a trail that others will follow. The fundamental question, then, is not organizational, it's theological. Who decides what is true and what is good? Fidelity to revelation and tradition, or the result of a vote? We gather, we vote, and what was once a sin becomes a virtue. What was once truth becomes opinion. Is this the future we're building? Rome cannot remain outside. The statutes will have to pass the scrutiny of the Vatican authorities. And here, the responsibility becomes enormous. Whatever decision is made, it will not be painless. Approving it would mean legitimizing a model that changes the very nature of ecclesiastical governance. Blocking it would mean opening a rift with one of the most powerful churches in Europe. Meanwhile, the climate is becoming increasingly tense. In recent weeks, signals, positions, and indirect criticisms have multiplied. Ancient liturgical gestures have suddenly become ideological issues. Calm words were interpreted as provocations. Everything indicates that tensions are high, that no one wants to arrive unprepared at the moment of decision. At stake is not only a reform, but the overall direction of the pontificate of Leo XIV, called to decide in a context with no recent precedents. If the statutes are approved as they are, with equal voting rights and no real room for dissent, we will enter a new phase. Not an experiment, but a normalization. And what today is presented as the exception will become the rule. This is why this week is different. It's a threshold, a before and after, not a debate, but a dividing line. The history of the Church is also made up of dramatic moments in which the choices of a few have affected the fate of many. This is one of those moments. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.